One thing is for absolutely sure from today's proceedings. This movement is not ready to win an independence vote because we've had 10 wasted fairy tale years in which no real work has been done. Now, I'm hoping that events here today and this evening may prove historic. If that proves to be so, and it leads to a manifesto for independence, I think it would be useful for the movement to learn lessons from the other historical event, the 2014 referendum, when we failed, and how the white paper of 2014, which was the 2014 Manifesto, that lay at the heart of that failure, was compiled, and by whom, so that we don't make the same mistake with the manifesto we will require to win independence in 3 years' time. It's very strange, but you know, there's never been a formal or even informal post-mortem on why we lost. That's quite remarkable. If you're running an amateur football team and you lose, the next day you sit and talk what you haven't done right. It's never happened on the biggest issue that faced Scotland over 300 years. Now, whereas today's meeting has involved lots of people, lots of opinion, discussions, questions and answers, the 2014 White Paper was the product of a very small group round Alex Salmond and Nicola Sturgeon. It was written in civil service prose by civil servants. It promoted independence as sort of change, no change, just a bit of change in the economy and social policy. And if you actually read it, because I reread it before I came here, and it's sitting down on the table there, it was defensive. It sought to reassure people, don't worry, there's nothing going to happen. There's no risks involved in independence, and it did not inspire. Whereas today's meeting, I think, has set the foundation for a better manifesto. The key proposal, and this is important, the key proposal in that document was the currency union between a Scottish state and an English state. And it was the product of a specialist, very eminent committee on financial affairs. And its proposition fell within seconds of its publication because it failed the political test. If you want a currency union between two states, both of them have got to agree. And if one of them doesn't, it doesn't happen. Now, there's a lesson to be, a very important lesson to be learned from that. Experts are valuable, and expert opinion is essential. But experts don't stand for election. They've no experience of standing on a platform with opponents who are going to do you down. So you've always got to take the expert's opinion and apply a political test as to whether it'll go with the public or not. And that's the most important lessons we can learn from 2014. Let us welcome expert opinion. Let us value what they've got to tell us, but put it through the political test before it's committed to black and white in an independence manifesto. Now, such a manifesto has to do two things: address directly and with concrete priority solutions to what ails our people in Scotland today. I want to be able, if I'm old enough and live long enough, to be able to go into the housing schemes and tell folk there, I have a manifesto which, if implemented by your vote for independence, I can transform your way of life in terms of prosperity. And that manifesto has to have something better even than the concrete solutions. It has to be expressed in language that will inspire in the Scots a liberating self-confidence in what they can achieve together. Once we are free from the debilitating devolution within the Union. I didn't vote for the Parliament in Holyrood. I read the white paper that was published, and once I read it, I told Margot, I can't vote for this. There is not enough power. Not only that, they'll be able to spin this out for 20 to 25 years with a wee bit here and a wee bit there. And what devolution has done to the Scottish political mind, it's narrowed it. How many times do we discuss foreign policy? How many times do we discuss defence policy? We don't. It's hospitals, roads, ferries, all very important. But these are not the issues that simply occupy a genuine, independent polity. Devolution is something we have got to tell the Scottish people will not work and will never work for us. And remember Enoch Powell's dictum, devolution is power retained at Westminster. Now, I doubt, and I may upset some people in this audience today, I doubt if such a manifesto will emerge from the other meeting taking place in Edinburgh today. Because the word independence that will be used there is an abstraction. It's like the fisherman's lure into the river to catch a salmon. It's a political fisherman's lure dipped into the stream of public opinion, looking for votes that can translate into seats even if it's a minority government. That's what's happening in Edinburgh as distinct from what's happening here, where we're trying to hammer out something of substance. The May election is the prime concern of the other meeting that's happening today. I don't believe 2026 is going to be decisive. We'll be lucky if we get a 55% poll. And how the hell you claim a mandate on a 55% poll where you only get 35% of it is well beyond me. 2029 is the decisive election for Scottish independence. First past the post is to our advantage. And if we build the independence vote, we cannot be beaten first past the post in 2029. What I want to do, and what I'd like the movement to do as we proceed to campaign, is say to the Scottish people, let us contrast the position in 2026, 27, 28, 29 with 2014. No unionist now can advance the 2014 Better Together project fear that Scotland, to survive, must cuddle into the arms of the economically powerful England disguised as the UK. Our partner on this island, far from being a global power, is in precipitous decline. Its institutions are crumbling. Doesn't matter which one you look at, they're all in crises. It's broken, broke, stuck in a deep trench of debt. It's got a government living in daily terror of the international bond market. A poor country that can no longer pretend to be rich and powerful. There are umpteen signs if the Scots will open their eyes to England's decline. At the very top level, between 2010 and 2025, there have been 7 prime ministers, every one a failure. We used to say that about Italy. Now you can say that about England. At the other end of the scale, there's the telling saga of HMS Dragon, whose inability to sail timorously gave the world the impression that Britain had a one-ship navy, while Macron could sell an aircraft carrier and 9 frigates in a couple of days. Far from being admired, south of the border is a world laughingstock. Now, there is a new case for independence, because the case from 2014, when we were defeated by people telling us, oh, we've got to be under the umbrella of the powerful UK. That no longer applies. We've looked at Scotland today. We've got to get the Scottish people to look at England in an entirely different way than they've ever looked at England before. The new case for optimism is what we should be putting to the Scottish people. And that's based on not simply what we can do, but what we can't do as long as we are attached to a state that's in decline, decay, and is a failure at home and on the international stage. But this movement, if we're going to have a new case, well, that's external. That's us talking to the folk. When it comes to talking to ourselves, we've some real hard decisions to make. So far, with the exception really of Alba, which has now failed, we have accepted the claim of one vehicle, the claim that they and they alone can deliver independence. I think the final test of that is in May. And if they don't pass that test, then I think this movement will have some very, very hard decisions to make. May, I think, will probably turn out to be one of the inflection points of history, where the hand of history makes redundant what is present and something new has to emerge. And we may have to follow the words of Abraham Lincoln at an inflection point in his country's history and think anew and act anew on which vehicle we choose to carry the Manifesto for independence. Now, I want to close because I think we have to put before the Scottish people not just a manifesto, but a manifesto for a purpose. Right now, Scotland is sharing that decline I've described about what's happening to our partners south of the border, because our economy is linked to it. In fact, I would actually argue from a personal point of view, I don't think there is a Scottish economy. We are an appendage of the economy from south of the border. That's debatable. But we are in the same state of decline. And this union carries costs. 25% of our young, according to a survey done last month, 25% of young Scots believe they have no future. You know, this should be the springtime of their lives, when they're bouncing with all the energy and ambition, when they look at the world as my generation and yours did when we were young, thinking there's nothing we can't take on and there's nothing we can't change. 25% of them think this hopeless, absolutely hopeless. We've got 20% of our young people living in poverty, and among them 80,000 living in abject poverty. Thousands of families have no home. Food banks, which were inconceivable 25 years ago, are now an informal but integral part of our social security system. People today in Scotland, in this union, cannot afford to put food on the table. Now, I'm a child of the war. During the war, U-boats were sinking ships in the Atlantic. Nobody anywhere in the British Isles could not put food on the table. Did young people with a future in their own nation. All of which is possible in a Scotland that is endowed with enough land and abundance of energy to take us from where we are today to a far, far better future where all of our people are prosperous. Now, if I may, and crave your indulgence, I would like to make a personal statement and a request to those in this audience and those it represents. I've been in politics 66 years. All of that time, I've been influenced by many men and many women, Margot being one of them. But by three in particular. Bertrand Russell taught me to think critically. Nye Bevan anchored me in democratic socialism. And Nehru of India, who in his great speech on the midnight hour of Indian independence set for me and all humankind an ambition that is impossible to achieve, but one which must be pursued and can be partially accomplished. Let me quote Naro on that historic evening. The ambition of the greatest men of our generation has been to wipe every tear from every eye. That may be beyond us, but so long as there are tears and suffering, so long our work will not be over. That challenge to improve the lot of the people has been at the centre of my life through 66 years. And during the almost half a century, along with others, now unknown and forgotten about, who have worked for Scottish independence. I'd like to say a word or two for our generation. The times were never right for us to deliver independence. Labour at one time were far too strong. We, however, had our great moments, but mostly we got gubbed. And we got back up and we got gubbed again. And we got back up and we got gubbed again and had the stamina to get back up once more. Our task was to keep the idea alive. That is the story of my generation in the independence movement. I am now 88 years old. The 2029 election is 3 years away, and the arithmetic talks for itself. So like others of my generation, my usefulness, and I say this not in any emotional way whatsoever, but just objectively, people of my generation and myself now have a limited usefulness for this movement. So I have a request to make to those of the younger generations with still so much to give. I want you to deliver the power of sovereignty, not just because we would have it at last. I want you to use that sovereignty to bring forth a Scottish society that has the mark and character of exceptional decency, one which we may not be able to do what Nehru said, to wipe every tear from every eye. But in this Scotland today, there are tears of anger, there are tears of sorrow, and there are tears of humiliation. The task I want you to use sovereignty for is to make sure that no unnecessary tear ever again falls down any Scottish cheek.